And according to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Calvert Street, Kent. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Wright. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light trousers, and soft felt hat. Persons are warned against ice-bound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue, and throughout
It wasn't the right kind. I went on to another dump, but that wasn't any good either. Practically a whole day wasted. My God, I'm half frozen. The car was skidding like anything. The snow's coming down thick. What do you bet we're not snowed up tomorrow?
No, I do hope not. If only the pipes don't freeze.
We'll have to keep the central heating well stoked up. Not too good. I do wish they'd send the coal along. We've not got any too much.
No, I hope everything goes well at first. First impressions are so important.
Is everything ready? Nobody's arrived yet, I suppose.
No, thank goodness. I think everything's in order. Mrs. Barlow's hooked it early. Afraid of the weather, I suppose.
What a nuisance these daily women are. That leaves everything on your shoulders.
And yours? This is a partnership.
So long as you don't ask me to cook.
No, that's my department. Anyway, there's lots of tins in case you're snowed up. Oh, Giles, do you think it's going to be all right?
Got cold feet, have you? Are you sorry now we didn't sell the place when your aunt left it to you instead of having this mad idea of running it as a guest house?
No, I'm not. And talking of a guest house, just look at that.
Pretty good, what?
It's a disaster, don't you see? You've left out the S. Monkwell instead of Monkswell?
Good Lord, so I did. However, did I come to do that? But it doesn't really matter, does it? Monkwell is just as good a name.
You're in disgrace. Go and stoke up the central heating.
Across that icy yard? Ugh. Shall I bank it up for the night now?
No, you don't do that until 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
How appalling.
Hurry up. Someone may arrive at any minute.
You've got all the rooms worked out?
Yes. Mrs. Boyle, Rose Room, Major Metcalf, Blue Room, Miss Casewell, East Room, and Mr. Rand in the Red Room.
I wonder what all these people will be like. Oughtn't we to have got rent in advance?
Oh, no, I don't think so.
We're rather mugged at this game.
They bring luggage. If they don't pay, we hang on to their luggage. It's quite simple.
I can't help thinking we ought to have taken a correspondence course in hotel keeping. We're sure to get had in some way. Their luggage might be just bricks wrapped up in newspaper. Where should we be then?
If they all wrote from very good addresses.
Well, that's what servants with forged references do. Some of these people may be criminals hiding from the police.
I don't care what they are, so long as they pay us 7 guineas a week.
You're such a wonderful woman of business, Molly.
According to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Calvert Street, Paris. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Light. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light tie, and soft felt hat. Burglars are warned against icebound roads. The heavy snow is expected to continue.
Thanks so much. Weather is simply awful. My taxi gave up at your gate. You wouldn't attempt to drive. No sporting instinct. Oh, you Mrs. Ralston. How delightful. My name's Wren.
How do you do, Mr. Wren?
You know, you're not at all as I pictured you. I've been thinking of you as a retired general's widow, Indian Army. And I thought you'd be terrifically grim, Mim-sahibish. And that the whole place would simply be crammed with Benares grass. Instead, it's heavenly. Quite heavenly. Lovely proportions. But that's a fake. Oh, but this table's genuine. I'm simply going to love this place. Have you got any wax flowers or birds of paradise?
I'm afraid not.
What a pity. What about a sideboard? A big purple plummy mahogany sideboard with great solid palm fruits on it?
Yes, we have. It's in the dining room.
In here? I must see it.
Do come and warm yourself.
Absolutely perfect. Real bedrock respectability. But why do away with the center mahogany dining table? Little tables just spoil the effect.
We thought our guests would prefer them. This is my husband.
How do you do? Terrible weather, isn't it? It takes one back to Dickens and Scrooge and that irritating Tiny Tim. It's so bogus. Of course, Mrs. Ralston, you're absolutely right about the little tables. I was being carried away by my feeling for period. And if you had a center mahogany dining table, you'd have to have the right family around it. Stern, handsome father with a beard. Prolific, faded mother. 11 children of assorted ages. A grim governess, and somebody called Poor Harriet. The poor relation who acts as General Dog's body and is very, very grateful for being given a good home.
I'll take your suitcase upstairs for you. Oak room, did you say?
Yes.
I do hope that it's got a four-poster with little chintz roses on it.
It hasn't.
I don't believe your husband is going to like me. How long have you been married? Are you very much in love?
We've been married just a year. Perhaps you would like to come up to your room.
Ticked off! But I do so like knowing all about people. I mean, I think that people are so madly interesting, don't you?
Well, I suppose some are and some are not.
No, I don't agree. They're all interesting. Because you never really know what anybody's really like, or what they're really thinking. For instance, you don't know what I'm thinking right now, do you?
Not in the least.
You see, the only people who really know what other people are like are artists. They don't know why they know it. But if they're portrait painters, it comes out on the canvas.
Are you a painter?
No, I'm an architect. My parents, you know, baptized me Christopher Wren in hopes of me becoming an architect. Christopher Wren, as good as halfway home. Of course, people laugh and make jokes about St. Paul's, but who knows? I may yet have the last laugh. Chris Wren's prefab nest may yet go down in history. I'm going to lie with you. I find your wife most sympathetic.
Indeed.
And really very beautiful.
Oh, don't be absurd.
There, isn't that just like an English woman? The compliments always embarrass them. European women have taken compliments as a matter of course, but English women seem to have all the feminine spirit crushed out of them by their husbands. There's something very boorish about English husbands.
Perhaps you'd like to come up to your room.
Shall I?
Could you stoke up the hot water boiler?
This is Monkswell Manor, I
Giles Ralston. Come into the fire, Mrs. Boyle, and get warm. Awful weather, isn't it? Is this your only luggage?
A major. Metcalf, is it? Is seeing to it.
I'll leave the door for him.
The taxi wouldn't risk coming up the drive. It stopped at the gate. We had to share a taxi from the station, and there was great difficulty in getting that. Nothing ordered to meet us, it seems.
I'm so sorry. We didn't know what train you would be coming by, you see. Otherwise, of course, we'd have seen that someone was standing by.
All trains should have been met.
Let me take your coat. My wife will be down in a minute. I'll just go along and give Metcalf a hand with the bags.
Drive might at least have been cleared of snow. Most offhand and casual, I must say.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Mrs. Ralston,
Yes?
you're very young
Young?
to be running an establishment of this kind. You can't have had much experience.
Well, there has to be a beginning for everything, hasn't there?
I see. Quite inexperienced. An old house. Hope you haven't got dry rot.
Certainly not.
A lot of people don't know they've got dry rot until it's too late to do anything about it.
The house is in perfect condition.
Could do with the coat of paint. You know you've got worm in this oak.
This way, Major. This is my wife.
How do you do? Absolute blizzard outside. Thought at one time we shouldn't make it. Oh, I beg your pardon. If it goes on like this, I should say you'll have 5 or 6 feet of snow by morning. I've not seen anything like it since I was on leave in 1940.
I'll take these upstairs. Which rooms did you say? Blue room and the rose room?
No. I put Mr. Wren in the rose room. He liked the four-poster so much. So it's Mrs. Boyle in the oak room and Major Metcalf in the blue room.
Major?
Sir,
Do you have much servant difficulty here?
Well, we have quite a good local woman who comes in from the village.
And what indoor staff?
No indoor staff, just us.
Indeed! I understood this was a guest house in full running order.
We've only just started.
I would have said that a proper staff of servants was essential before opening an establishment of this kind. I consider your advertisement was most misleading. May I ask if I'm the only guest? With Major Metcalf, that is.
No, there are several here.
This weather, too. A blizzard, no less. All very unfortunate.
But we couldn't very well foresee the weather.
The north wind don't blow and it will bring snow, and what will the robin do then, poor thing? I just adore nursery rhymes, don't you? Always so tragic and macabre. That's why children like them.
May I introduce Mr. Wren, Mrs. Boyle.
How do you do?
This is a very beautiful house, don't you think so?
I have come to the time of life when the amenities of an establishment are more important than its appearance. If I had not believed this was a running concern, I should never have come here. I understood it was fully equipped with every home comfort.
There is no obligation for you to remain here if you are not satisfied, Mrs. Boyle.
No, indeed. I should not think of doing so.
I can ring up for the taxi to return. The roads are not yet blocked. We have had so many applications for rooms that we shall be able to fill your place quite easily. In any case, we are raising our terms next month.
I am certainly not going to leave before I have tried what the place is like. You needn't think you can turn me out now. Perhaps you will take me to my bedroom, Mrs. Ralston.
Certainly, Mrs. Boyle. Darling, you were wonderful.
I think that's a perfectly horrible woman. I don't like her at all. No, I'd love to see you turn her out in the snow. Serve her right.
It's a pleasure I've got to forego, I'm afraid. Lord, there's another of them. Come in, come in.
I'm afraid my car's parked about half a mile down the road. I ran into a drift.
Let me take this. Any more stuff in the car?
No, I travel light. Ah, glad to see you've got a good fire.
Mr. Wren, Miss...
Casewell.
My wife will be down in a minute.
No hurry. Got to get myself thawed out. Looks as though you're going to be snowed up here. Weather forecast says heavy falls expected, motorists warned, etc. Hope you've got plenty of provisions in.
Oh yes, my wife's an excellent manager. Anyway, we can always eat our hands.
Before we start eating each other, eh? Any news in the paper? That possible the weather?
Usual political crisis. Oh yes, and a rather juicy murder.
A murder? Oh, I like murder.
They seem to think it was a homicidal maniac. Strangled a woman somewhere near Paddington. Sex maniac, I suppose.
Doesn't say much, does it? The police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity of Culver Street at the time. Medium height, wearing darkish overcoat, lightest stock, and soft felt hat. Police messages to this effect have been broadcast throughout the day.
Useful description. Fit pretty well anyone, wouldn't it?
I wonder, when it says that the police are anxious to interview somebody, is that a polite way of hinting that he's the murderer?
Could be.
Who was the woman who was murdered?
Mrs. Lyon. Mrs. Maureen Lyon.
Young or old?
It doesn't say. It doesn't seem to have been robbery.
I told you, sex maniac.
Here's Miss Casewell, Molly. My wife.
How do you do?
It's an awful night. Would you like to come up to your room? The water's hot. Would you like a bath?
You're right, I would.
Little Jack Horner sat in a corner eating his Christmas pie. He put in his thumb and pulled out a plum and said, "What a good boy am I."
Well, I must hurry out to the kitchen and get on with things. Major Metcalf is very nice. It won't be much trouble. It's Mrs. Boyle really frightens me. We must have a nice dinner. I was thinking of opening 2 tins of minced beef and cereal, and a tin of peas, and mashing the potatoes. Oh, and there's stewed figs and custard. Do you think that will be all right?
Oh, I should think so. Not very original, perhaps.
Do let me help. I adore cooking. Why not an omelet? You've got eggs, haven't you?
Oh, yes, we've got lots of eggs. Our fowls don't lay as well as they should, but we put down plenty of eggs.
And if you've got a bottle of cheap any-type wine, you could add it to the minced beef and cereals, did you say? To give it a continental flavor. Show me where the kitchen is and what you've got, and I dare say I shall have an inspiration.
Come on. Isn't he sweet? He's getting all the things together. He says each all to him and don't come back for half an hour. If the guests want to do their cooking themselves, it will save a lot of trouble.
Why on earth did you give him the best room?
I told you he liked the 4-poster.
He liked the pretty 4-poster? Twerp.
Giles,
I've got no use for that kind. You didn't handle his suitcase, I did.
have it got bricks in it?
It was no weight at all. If you ask me, there was nothing inside. He's probably one of those young men who go about looking hotel keepers.
I don't believe it. I like him. Anyway, I think Miss Casewell's rather peculiar, don't you?
Terrible female. If she is a female.
It seems rather hard that all our guests should be either unpleasant or odd. Anyway, I think Major Metcalf's all right, don't you?
Probably drinks.
Oh, do you think so?
No, I don't. I was just feeling rather depressed. Well, at any rate, we know the worst now. They've all arrived.
Who can that be?
Probably the Culver Street murderer.
Don't.
Oh, 1,000 pardons. I am... Where there, man?
This is Longswell Manor Guest House.
Oh, but what stupendous misfortune. Madame. What an answer to prayer. A guest house and a charming hostess. My Rolls Royce, alas, has run into a drift. Blinding snow everywhere. I do not know where I am. Perhaps I think to myself, I shall freeze to death. And then I take a little bath, and I stagger through the snow. Then I see before me big iron gates, a habitation. I am saved. Twice I fall into the snow as I come up your drive. But I arrive and immediately despair turns to joy. You can let me have a room, yes?
Oh, yes,
I'm afraid it's rather small room.
Oh, naturally. You have other guests.
Well, we've only just started this place as a guest house today, and so we're rather new at it.
Charming. time.
What about your luggage?
Oh, that is of no consequence. I have locked the car securely.
But wouldn't it be better to...
No. I can assure you on such a night as this, there will be no thieves abroad. And as for me, my wants are simple. I have all I need in this little bag. Yes, all that I need.
You'd better get yourself thoroughly warm. I'll see about your room. I'm afraid it's a rather cold room because it faces north, but all the others are occupied.
You have several guests then?
Yes, there's Mrs. Boyle, Major Metcalf, and Miss Casewell, and a young man called Christopher Wren, and now you.
Yes. The unexpected guest. The guest that you did not invite. The guest who just arrived from nowhere, out of the storm. Sounds quite dramatic, does it not? Who am I? You do not know. Where do I come from? You do not know. Me? I am the man of mystery. But now I tell you this. I complete the picture. From now on, there will be no more arrivals, and no departures either. By tomorrow, perhaps even already, we are cut off from civilization. No butcher, no baker, no milkman, no postman, no daily papers. Nobody and nothing but ourselves. It is admirable. Admirable. It could not suit me better. My name, by the way, is Pettivich.
Oh, yes, ours is Ralston.
Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Ralston. And this is Monkswell Manor Guest House, you said? Good. Monkswell Manor Guest House. Perfect. Perfect.
They were only just starting this place.
Well, everything's got to have a beginning, you know. Excellent breakfast this morning. Good coffee, scrambled eggs, homemade marmalade. And all nicely served, too. Little woman does it all herself.
Amateurs. There should be a proper staff.
Excellent lunch, too.
Corned beef.
But very well disguised corned beef. Red wine. Mrs. Ralston promised to make a pie for us tonight.
These radiators are not really hot. I should speak about it.
Very comfortable beds, too. At least mine was. I hope yours was, too.
It was quite adequate. I don't quite see why the best bedroom should have been given to that very peculiar young man.
Got here ahead of us. First come, first served.
From the advertisement, I got quite a different impression of what this place would be like. A comfortable writing room. A much larger place altogether. Bridge and other amenities.
Regular old having delight.
I beg your pardon.
I quite see what you mean.
No, indeed. I shan't stay here long.
No, I don't suppose you will.
Really, that's a peculiar young man. Unbalanced mentally, I shouldn't wonder.
I think he's escaped from the lunatic asylum.
I shouldn't be at all surprised.
Can you come to shovel the snow away again from the back door?
Coming.
I'll help you, what? Good exercise. Must have exercise.
That's all right.
Really? That's an incredible young woman. Doesn't she know anything about housework? Carrying a carpet sweeper through the front hall. Aren't there any back stairs?
Oh yes, nice back stairs. Very convenient if there was a fire.
Then why not use them? Anyway, all the housework should have been done in the morning before lunch.
I gather our hostess had to cook for lunch.
All very haphazard and amateurish. There should be a proper staff.
Not very easy to get nowadays, is it?
No, indeed. The lower classes seem to have no idea of their responsibilities.
Poor old lower classes. Got the bit between their teeth, haven't they?
I gather you are a socialist.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I'm not a red, just pale pink. But I don't take much interest in politics. I live abroad.
I suppose conditions are much easier abroad.
I don't have to cook and clean, as I gather most people have to do in this country.
This country has gone sadly downhill. Not what it used to be. I sold my house last year. Everything was too difficult.
Hotels and guest houses are easier.
They certainly solve some of one's problems. Are you over in England for long?
Depends. I've got some business to see to. When it's done, I shall go back.
To France?
No.
Italy?
No.
That on quite so loud. I always find the radio rather distracting when one is trying to write letters.
Do you?
If you don't particularly want to listen just now.
It's my favorite music. There's a writing table in there.
I know, but it's much warmer here.
Much warmer. I agree. Bloody old hag.
And then she glares at me, positively glares.
Turn it down a bit.
Is that all right?
Yes, it served its purpose.
What purpose?
Tactics, boy.
Oh, you mean her?
She pinched the best chair. I broke it now.
You drove her out. I'm glad. I'm very glad. I don't like her a bit. Let's think of things we can do to annoy her, shall we? I wish she'd go away from here.
In this, not a hope.
But when the snow melts.
Oh, when the snow melts, lots of things may happen.
Yes. Yes, that's true. Snow's rather lovely, isn't it? So peaceful and pure. Makes one forget things.
It doesn't make me forget.
How fierce you sound.
I was thinking.
What sort of thinking?
Ice on a bedroom jug. Chilled blankets, raw and clean. One thin, ragged blanket. A child shivering with cold and fear.
My dear, it sounds too grim. What is it, a novel?
You didn't know I was a writer, did you?
Are you?
Actually, I'm not. Sorry to disappoint you.
Yes, this is Mousetrap at a guest house. No, I'm sorry. Mr. Ralston can't come to the telephone just now. This is Mrs. Ralston speaking. Who? The Berkshire Police. Oh, yes, Superintendent Hoffman. I'm afraid that's impossible. He'd never get here. We're snowed up. Completely snowed up. The roads are impassable. Nothing can get through. Yes. Very well. But what? Hello? Hello?
Molly, do you know where there's another spade?
Giles, the police have just rung up.
Trouble with the police, eh? Serving liquor without a license?
They said they're sending an inspector or a sergeant out here.
But he'll never get here.
That's what I said, but they seemed quite calm. confident that we would.
Nonsense. Even if you couldn't get through today. Anyway, what's it all about?
That's what I asked. They wouldn't say. Just said I was to impress on my husband, to listen very carefully to what Sergeant Trotter, I think it was, had to say, and to follow his instructions implicitly. Isn't it extraordinary?
What on earth do you think we've done?
Do you think it's those nylons from Gibraltar?
I did remember to get the wireless license, didn't I?
Oh, yes, it's in the kitchen dresser.
I had rather a near shave of the car the other day, but it was entirely the other fellow's fault.
We must have done something.
Probably something to do with running this place. I expect we've ignored some tin pot regulation of some ministry or other. You practically can't avoid it nowadays.
Oh, I wish we'd never started this place. Everyone is cross, and we're all snowed up, and we shall go through all our reserve of tins.
Cheer up, darling. Everything is going all right at the moment. I've filled up all the coal scuttles and brought in the wood and stoked the furnace and done the hens. I'll go into the boiler next and chop some chicken. You know, Molly, come to think of it, it must be something pretty serious to set a police sergeant tricking out at all this. It must be something really urgent.
Ah, there you are, Mr. Ralston. Do you know the central heating in the library is practically stone cold?
Sorry, Mrs. Boyle. We were a bit short of coal.
I'm paying 7 guineas a week here. 7 guineas, and I do not want to freeze.
I'll go and stoke it up.
Mrs. Ralston, if you don't mind my saying so, that's a very peculiar young man you have staying here. His manners and his ties. Does he ever brush his hair?
He's an extremely brilliant young architect.
I beg your pardon.
Christopher Wren is an architect.
My dear young woman, I've naturally heard of Sir Christopher Wren. Of course he was an architect. He built St. Paul's. Young people seem to think that no one is educated but yourselves.
I meant this Wren. His name is Christopher. His parents called him that in hopes that he'd become an architect. And he is. Or nearly one, so it turned out all right.
Sounds a fishy story to me. I should make some inquiries about him if I were you. What do you know of him?
Just as much as I know about you, Mrs. Boyle, which is that you're both paying us 7 guineas a week. That is really all I need to know, isn't it? And all that concerns me. It doesn't matter to me whether I like my guests or whether I don't.
You are young and inexperienced and should welcome advice from someone more knowledgeable than yourself. What about this foreigner?
What about him?
You weren't expecting him, were you?
To turn away a bona fide traveler is against the law, Mrs. Boyle. You should know that.
Why do you say that?
Weren't you a magistrate sitting on the bench, Mrs. Boyle?
All I say is that this Paracini, or whatever he calls himself, seems to me...
Beware! Dear lady, you speak of the devil and here he is.
I didn't hear you come in.
I came in on tiptoe, like this. Nobody ever hears me if I do not want them to. I find that very amusing.
Indeed.
Now, there was a young lady.
I must get on with my letters. I'll see if it's a bit warmer in the drawing room.
My charming hostess looks upset. What is it, dear lady?
Everything's rather difficult this morning because of the snow.
Yes. Snow makes things difficult, does it not? Or else it makes them easy. Yes, very easy.
I don't know what you mean.
No, there is quite a lot I think you do not know. I think for one thing, you do not know much about running a guest house.
Well, I definitely don't, but we mean to make a go of it.
Oh, bravo, bravo.
I'm not such a very bad cook.
You are without a doubt an enchanted cook. But may I give you a little word of warning, Mrs. Ralston? You and your husband must not be too trusting. Have you references with these guests of yours?
Is that usual? I always thought people just came.
It is advisable to know a little bit about the people who sleep under your roof. Take, for example, myself. I come in saying that my car is overturned in a snowdrift. What do you know of me? Nothing at all. I could be a thief, a robber, a fugitive from justice, a madman, even a murderer. You see? And perhaps you know just as little of your other guests.
Well, as far as Mrs. spoiled, though. It's
Drawing
all
room is far too cold to sit in. I shall write my letters in here.
Allow me to poke the fire for you.
Mrs. Ralston, is your husband out? I'm afraid the pipes, the downstairs cloakroom are frozen.
Oh dear, what an awful day. First the police, and then the lights.
Police!
Police, did you say?
They just rang up to say they're sending a sergeant out here. But I don't think he'll ever get here.
The running coal's more than half stones. And the price. Hello, is anything the matter?
I hear the police are on their way here. Why?
Oh, that's all right. No one can get through in this. Why, the drifts must be 5 feet deep. The roads are all banked up. Nobody will get here today. Excuse me, Mr. Pervicini. May I put these down?
Are you Mr. Ralston?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Detective Sergeant Trotter, Berkshire Police. Can I get these skis off and stow them somewhere?
Go round that way to the front door. I'll meet you.
Thank you, sir.
I suppose that's what we pay our police force for nowadays. To go around enjoying themselves in winter sports.
Why did you phone for the police, Mrs. Ralston?
But I didn't.
Who is that man? Where did he come from? He passed the drawing room window on skis. All over snow and looking terribly hearty.
You may believe it or not, but that man is a policeman. A policeman skiing.
This is Detective Sergeant Trotter.
Good afternoon.
You can't be a sergeant. You're too young.
I'm not quite as young as I look, madam.
But terribly hearty.
We'll stow your skis away under the stairs.
Excuse me, Mrs. Ralston. May I use your telephone?
Certainly, Major Metcalf.
He's very attractive, don't you think so? I always think that policemen are very attractive.
No brains. You can see that at a glance.
Hello? Hello? Mrs. Ralston, this telephone is dead. Quite dead.
It was all right about half an hour ago.
The line's gone with the wind and snow, I suppose.
So we're quite cut off now. Quite cut off. That's funny, isn't it?
I don't see anything to laugh at.
No, indeed.
Oh, it's a private joke of my own. Yes, the sleuth is returning.
Now we can get down to business. Mr. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston.
Do you want to see us alone? If so, we can go into the library.
It's not necessary, sir. It will save time if everybody is present.
Do hurry up and tell us. What have we done?
Done? Oh, it's nothing of that kind, Mrs. Ralston. It's something quite different. It's more a matter of police protection, if you understand.
Police protection?
It relates to the death of Maureen Lyon of 24 Culver Street, London, West 2, who was murdered yesterday, the 15th instant. You may have heard or read about the case.
Yes, I heard about it on the wireless. The woman who was strangled?
That's right, madam. The first thing I want to know is if you are acquainted with this Mrs. Lyon.
Never heard of her.
You may have known her under the name of Lyon. Lyon wasn't her real name. She had a police record and her fingerprints were on file, so we were able to identify her without difficulty. Her real name was Maureen Stanning. Her husband was a farmer, John Stanning, who resided at Longridge Farm, not very far.
Longridge Farm? Isn't that where those
Yes,
children...
the Longridge Farm case.
3 children.
That's right, miss. The Corrigans. 2 boys and a girl, brought before the court as in need of care and protection. A home was found for them with Mr. and Mrs. Stanning at Longridge Farm. One of the children subsequently died as a result of criminal neglect and persistent ill treatment. The case made a bit of a sensation at the time.
It was horrible.
The Stannings were sentenced to terms of imprisonment. Stanning died in prison. Mrs. Stanning served her sentence and was duly released. Yesterday, as I say, she was found strangled at 24 Culver Street.
Who did it?
I'm coming to that, madam. A notebook was picked up near the scene of the crime. In that notebook was written 2 addresses. One was 24 Culver Street. The other was Monkswell Manor.
What?
Yes, sir. That is why Superintendent Hoffman, on receiving this information from Scotland Yard, felt it imperative for me to come out here and find out if you knew of any connection between this house or anyone in this house and the Longridge Farm case.
There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. It must be a
The
coincidence.
superintendent doesn't think it a coincidence, sir. He'd have come himself if it had been in any way possible. Under the weather conditions and his item ski, he sent me with instructions to get full particulars of everyone in this house, report back to him by phone, and take what measures I thought fit to ensure the safety of the household.
Safety? What danger does he think we're in? Good Lord, he's not suggesting that somebody's going to be killed here.
I don't wish to frighten any of the ladies, but frankly, yes, that is the idea.
But why?
That's what I am here to find out.
But the whole thing's crazy.
Yes, sir, it's because it's crazy that it's dangerous.
Nonsense. I must say, it seems a bit far-fetched.
I think it's wonderful.
Is there something you're not telling us, Sergeant?
Yes, Mrs. Bolton. Below the two addresses was written 3 blind mice. And on the dead woman's body was a piece of paper with "This is the first" written on it. And below the words was a drawing of 3 little mice and a bar of music. The music was the tune of the nursery rhyme 3 Blind Mice. You know how it goes. 3 blind mice.
3 blind mice, see how they run, and all the forest fight. What's horrible?
There were 3 children and 1 died?
Yes, the youngest, a boy of 11.
What happened to the other 2?
The girl was adopted by someone. We haven't been able to trace her present whereabouts. The elder boy would now be about 22, deserted from the army and hasn't been heard of since. According to the army psychiatrist, he was definitely schizophrenic. A bit queer in the head, that's to say.
You think that it was he who killed Mrs. Lyon and Mrs. Stanning,
Yes.
and that he's a homicidal maniac and he will turn up here and try to kill someone? But why?
That's what I've got to find out from you. As the superintendent sees it, there must be some connection. Now you state, sir, that you have never had any connection with the Long Ridge Farm case.
No.
And the same goes for you, madam.
No, I mean no connection.
What about the servants?
We haven't got any servants. That reminds me, Sergeant Trotter. Would you mind if I went out to the kitchen? I'll be there if you need me.
That's quite all right, Mrs. Bolton. Now, can I have all of your names, please?
This is quite ridiculous. We're merely staying in a kind of hotel. We only arrived yesterday. We've nothing to do with this place.
You planned to come here in advance, though. You booked your rooms ahead.
Well, yes. All except Mr.
Oh, Peravicini. My car overturned in a snowdrift.
I see. What I am getting at is that anyone who's been following you around might know very well that you are coming here. Now, there's just one thing I want to know, and I want to know it quick. Which of you is it that has some connection with the Long Ridge Farm case? You're not being very sensible, you know. One of you is in danger, deadly danger. I've got to know which one that is. All right. I'll ask you one by one. You first, since you seem to have arrived here more or less by accident, Mr. Perry.
Peravicini. But my dear Inspector, I know nothing of what you have been talking about. I am a stranger in this country. I know nothing of these local affairs of bygone years.
Mrs.
Boyle. I don't see. Really, I consider it an impertinence. Why on earth should I have anything to do with this distressing business?
Miss.
Casewell, Leslie Casewell. I never heard of Long Ridge Farm, and I know nothing about it.
You, sir.
Mousetrap from Agent. Read about the case in the papers at the time. I was stationed in Edinburgh then. No personal knowledge.
And you.
Christopher Ripp. I was a mere child at the time. I don't remember even hearing about it.
That's all you have to say. Any of you. Well, if one of you gets murdered, you'll have yourself to blame. Now, Mr. Ralston, can I have a look around the house?
My dears, how melodramatic. He's very attractive, isn't he? I do so admire the police, so stern and hard-boiled. Quite a thrill, this whole business. The 3 blind mice. How did the tune go?
Really, Mr. Red?
Don't you like it? But it's the signature tune. The signature of the murderer. Just fancy what a kick he must be getting out of it.
Melodramatic rubbish. I don't believe a word of it.
But just wait, Mrs. Boyle, till you hear me creep up behind you. You feel my hands on your throat.
Stop, Christopher. It's a poor joke anyway. In fact, it's not a joke at all.
Ah, but it is. That's just what it is. A madman's joke. That's just what makes it so deliciously macabre. If you could just see your faces.
Singularly ill-mannered and neurotic young man.
Where's Giles?
Taking our policeman on a conducted tour of the house.
Your friend, the architect, has been behaving in a most abnormal manner.
Young fellows seem nervy nowadays. Dare say they'll grow out of it.
Nerves? I've no patience with people who say they have nerves. I haven't any nerves.
No, perhaps that's just as well, Mrs. Boyle.
What do you mean?
I think you were actually one of the magistrates on the bench at the time. In fact, you were responsible for sending those 3 children to Longridge Farm.
Really, Major Metcalf? I can hardly be held responsible. We had reports from welfare workers. The farm people were very nice and seemed most anxious to have the children. It seemed most satisfactory. Eggs, fresh milk, and a healthy out-of-doors life.
Kicks, blows, starvation, and a thoroughly vicious couple.
But how was I to know they were very civilly spoken?
I was right. Was.
One tries to do a public duty and all one gets is abuse.
You must forgive me. But indeed I find all this most amusing. I enjoy myself greatly.
Never did like that man.
Where did he come from last night?
I don't know.
Looks a bit of a skid to me. Makes his face up too. Rouge and powder. Disgusting. He must be quite old too.
And yet he skips about as though he were quite young.
You'll be wanting more wood. I'll get it.
It's almost dark and with us only 4 in the afternoon. I'll turn on the light. There, that's better.
Where did I leave my pen?
What a horrid little tune.
Don't you like it? Reminds you of your childhood, perhaps? An unhappy childhood?
I was very happy as a child.
You were lucky.
Weren't you happy?
No.
I'm sorry.
But all that's a long time ago. One gets over things.
I suppose so.
Or doesn't one? Damned hard to say.
And they say that what happened to you when you were a child happens more than anything else.
They say, who says?
Psychologists.
Oh, humbug, just a damn lot of nonsense. I have no use for psychologists and psychiatrists.
I never really had much to do with them.
A good thing for you, you haven't. It's all a lot of hooey, the whole thing. Life's what you make it. Go straight ahead and don't look back.
One can't always help looking back.
Nonsense. It's a question of willpower.
Perhaps.
I know.
But sometimes things happen to make you remember.
Don't give in. Turn your back on it.
Is that really the right way? I wonder, perhaps it's all wrong. Perhaps we're not willing to face it.
Depends what you're talking about.
Sometimes I hardly know what I'm talking about.
Nothing from the past is going to affect me, except in the way I want it.
Well, everything is all right upstairs. What's in here? Drawing room?
You mind shutting that door? This place is full of drafts.
Sorry, madam, but I've got to get the lay of the land.
Molly, what's all this about?
Well, that completes the tour. Nothing suspicious. I think I'll make my report now to the superintendent.
But you can't telephone. The line's dead.
What? But it was all right earlier. Superintendent Hoffman got through all right.
Major Metcalf tried it just after you arrived.
But it was all right earlier. Superintendent got through just fine.
Major Metcalf tried it just after you arrived.
I wonder. Perhaps it's been cut.
Cut? But who could cut it?
Mr. Ralston, just how much do you know about these people that are staying in your guest house?
We don't really know anything about it. Mrs. Boyle wrote from the Bertram Hotel. Major Metcalf from an address in... Where was it?
Leamington.
Wren wrote from Hampstead, and the case-world woman from a private hotel in Kensington. Still, I suppose they've all got ration books, that sort of thing.
I shall go in for all that, of course. But there's not much reliance to be placed on that sort of evidence.
But even if this maniac is trying to get here and kill us all, or one of us, we're quite safe now. Because of the snow. No one can get here until it melts.
Unless he is here already.
Here already?
Why not, Mr. Ralston?
All of these people arrived here yesterday evening, some hours after the murder of Mrs. Stanning. Plenty of time to get here.
But except for Mr. Paravicini, they'd all moved beforehand.
Well, why not? These crimes were planned.
Crimes? There's only been one crime in Culver Street. Why are you so sure that there will be another here?
That it will happen here, no. I hope to prevent that. That it will be attempted, yes.
I can't believe it. It's so fantastic.
It isn't fantastic, it's just facts.
You've got a description of what this man looked like in London?
Medium height and determinate build, dark overcoat, soft felt hat, face hidden by a muffler, spoken or whisper. There are 3 darkish overcoats hanging in the hall now. One of them is yours, Mr. Ralston. There are 3 lightish felt hats.
I still don't believe it.
You see, it's this telephone wire that's bothering me. If it's been cut.
I must go and get on to the vegetables.
Is there an extension?
I beg your pardon. Did you say something?
Yes, Mr. Ralston. I said, is there an extension?
Yes, up in our bedroom.
Go up and try it for me, will you? Boyle had only just been killed when you got to her. You came from the kitchen. Are you sure you didn't see or hear anybody as you came along the hallway?
No, I don't think so. Just the radio blaring out in here. I couldn't think who turned it on so loud. Wouldn't hear anything else with that, could I?
That was clearly the murderer's idea. Or murderess.
How could I hear anything else?
You might have done. If the killer had left the hall that way, he might have heard you coming from the kitchen. He might have slipped up the back stairs or into the dining room.
I think. I'm not sure. I heard a door creak and shut just as I came out of the kitchen.
Which door?
I don't know.
Think, Mrs. Ralston. Try and think. Upstairs, downstairs, close at hand, right, left.
I don't know. I tell you, I'm not even sure I heard anything at all.
Can't you stop bullying her? Can't you see she's all in?
We are investigating a murder, Mr. Ralston. Up to this point, nobody has taken this thing seriously. Mrs. Boyle didn't. Mrs. Boyle held out on me with information. You all held out on me. Well, Mrs. Boyle is dead. And unless we get to the bottom of this, and quickly mind, there may be another death.
Another? Nonsense. Why?
Because there were 3 little blind mice.
A death for each of them? But there would have to be some connection. I mean, another connection with the Long Ridge Farm business.
There would have to be that, yes.
But why another death here?
Because there were only 2 addresses in the notebook we found. Now, at 24 Culver Street, there was only one possible victim. She's dead. But here at Monkswell Manor, there is a wider field.
Nonsense. Surely it would be a most unlikely coincidence that there should be 2 people brought here by chance, both with the sheriff of Long Ridge Farm case.
Given certain circumstances, it wouldn't be that much of a coincidence. Think it out in this case, well. Now, I want to get down quite clearly where everyone was at the time Mrs. Boyle was killed. I've already got Mrs. Ralston's statement. You were in the kitchen preparing vegetables. You came out of the kitchen through the passage, through the swing door, into the hall, and in here. The radio was blaring because the light was switched off and the hall was dark. You turned the light on, saw Mrs. Boyle, and screamed.
Yes. I screamed and screamed, and at last people came.
Yes, as you say, people came. A lot of people from different directions, all arriving more or less at once. Now, when I got out of that window to trace the telephone wire, you, Mr. Ralston, went upstairs to the room you and Mrs. Ralston occupied and tried the extension line. Where were you when Mrs. Ralston screamed?
I was still up in the bedroom. The extension telephone was dead too. I looked out of the window to see if I could see any sign of the wires being cut there, but I couldn't. Just after I closed the window again, I heard Molly scream and I rushed out.
Those simple actions took you rather a long time, didn't they, Mr. Ralston?
I don't think so.
Oh, I should say you definitely took your time over them.
I was thinking about something.
Very well. Now, Mr. Wren, what about you? I'll have your account of where you were.
I'd been in the kitchen, seeing if there was anything I could do to help Mrs. Ralston. I adore cooking. And after that, I went upstairs to my bedroom.
Why?
It's quite a natural thing to go to one's bedroom, don't you think? I mean, one does want to be alone sometimes.
You went to your bedroom because you wanted to be alone.
And I wanted to brush my hair. and tidy up.
You wanted to brush your hair.
Anyway, that's where I was.
And you heard Mrs. Ralston scream.
Yes.
And you came down.
Yes.
Curious that you and Mr. Ralston didn't meet on the stairs.
I came down by the back stairs, then here to my room.
Did you go to your room by the back stairs, or did you come through here?
I went up by the back stairs, too.
I see. Mr. Palmachini.
I have told you. I was playing the piano in the drawing room. Through there, Inspector.
I am not an inspector, just a sergeant, Mr. Palmachini. Did anybody hear you playing the piano?
I do not expect so. I was playing very, very softly. With one finger, so.
You were playing 3 blind mice.
Is that so?
Well, yes. It is a very catchy little tune. It is, how shall I say, a haunting little tune. Don't you all agree?
I think it's horrible.
And yet it runs in people's heads. Someone was whistling it today, too.
Whistling it?
I'm not sure. Perhaps in the front hall, perhaps upstairs, perhaps even upstairs in the bedroom.
Who was whistling 3 blind mice? Are you making this up, Mr. Palmachini?
Oh, no, Inspector. I beg your pardon, Sergeant. I would not do a thing like that.
Well, go on. You were playing the piano.
With one finger, so. And then I hear the radio, playing very loudly. Someone is shouting on it. It offends my ears. And then suddenly I hear Mrs. Ralston scream.
Mr. Ralston upstairs, Mr. Wren upstairs, Mr. Palmachini in the drawing room. Miss Casewell?
I was writing letters in the library.
Could you hear what was going on in here?
No, I didn't hear anything until Mrs. Ralston screamed.
And what did you do then?
I came in here.
At once?
I think think so.
You say you were writing letters when you heard Mrs. Ralston scream.
Yes.
And you got up from the writing table hurriedly and came in here.
Yes.
And yet there doesn't seem to be any unfinished letter on the writing desk in the library.
I brought it with me.
Dearest Jessie, friend of yours or relation?
That's none of your damn business.
Perhaps not. You know, Miss Casewell, if I was to hear someone screaming blue murder when I was writing a letter, I do not believe I would take the time to pick up my unfinished letter, fold it, and put it in my handbag before going to see what was the matter.
You wouldn't. How interesting.
Now, Major Metcalf, what about you? You say you were in the cellars. Why?
Looking around. Just looking around. I looked into that cupboard place underneath the stairs near the kitchen. A lot of junk and sports stuff. And I noticed a door. And I opened it, and I saw a flight of steps. I was curious, and I went down. Nice cellars you've got.
Glad you like them.
Not at all. Crypt of an old monastery, I should say. Probably why they call this place Mousetrap.
We are not engaged in antiquarian research, Major Metcalf. We are investigating a murder. Now, Mrs. Ralston has told us that she heard a door shut with a faint creak. That particular door shuts with a creak. It could be, you know, that after killing Mrs. Boyle, the murderer heard Mrs. Ralston coming from the kitchen and slipped into the cupboard, pulling the door to after him.
A lot of things could be.
There would be fingerprints on the inside of the cupboard.
Mine are there, all right. But most criminals will carefully wear gloves, aren't they?
It's usual. But all criminals slip up sooner or later.
I wonder, Sergeant, if that's really true.
Look here, aren't we wasting time? There's one person
Please,
here.
Mr. Ralston, I am in charge of this investigation.
Oh, very well, but it seems to me that...
Mr. Ralston! Thank you. We've got to establish opportunity, you know, as well as motive. And now let me tell you this. You all had the opportunity. There are two staircases. Anyone can go down by one and come up by the other. Anyone can go down to the cellars by the door in the kitchen and come up by a flight of steps leading through a trap door that comes to the foot of the stairs over there. The vital fact is that every one of you was alone at the time the murder was committed.
But look here, Sergeant. You speak as though we were all under suspicion. That's absurd.
In a murder case, everyone is under suspicion.
But you know pretty well who killed that woman in Culver Street. You think it's the eldest of those 3 children at the farm. A mentally abnormal young man who is now 23 years of age. Well, damn it all, there's only one person here who fits the bill.
It's not true. It's not true. You're all against me. You've always been against me, and now you're going to frame me for a murder, and it's persecution. That's what it is. It's persecution.
Steady, lad, steady.
It's all right, Chris. Nobody's against you. Tell him it's all right.
We don't frame people.
Tell him you're not going to arrest him.
I'm not arresting anyone. To do that, I've got to have evidence. I haven't got any evidence yet.
I think you're crazy, Molly. And you too. There's just one person here who fits the bill, and if only as a safety measure, he ought to be put under arrest. It's only fair to the rest of us.
Wait, Giles. Sergeant Trotter, may I speak to you a minute?
Certainly, Mrs. Ralston. Will the rest of you go into the dining room, please?
I'm staying.
No, Giles. You too, please.
I'm staying. I don't know what's come over you, Molly.
Please.
Yes, Mrs. Ralston, what is it you want to say to me?
Sergeant Trotter, you think that the murderer is the eldest of those 3 children at the farm, but you don't know that, do you?
We don't actually know a thing. All we've got so far is the woman who joined with her husband in ill-treating and starving those children has been killed. And the woman magistrate who was responsible for placing them there has been killed. The telephone wire that links me with police headquarters has been cut.
But you don't even know that. It may have just been the snow.
No, Mrs. Ralston, the line was deliberately cut. It was cut round near the front door. I found the place.
I see.
Sit down.
But all the same, you really...
I am going by probability. It all points one way. Mental instability, childish mentality, desertion from the army, and a psychiatrist's report.
Oh, I know, and therefore it all seems to point to Christopher. But I don't believe it is Christopher. There must be other possibilities.
Such as?
Well, hadn't those children any relations at all?
Their mother was a drunk. She died soon after the children were taken away from her.
What about their father?
He was an army sergeant serving abroad. If he's still alive, he's probably been discharged by now.
You don't know where he is now.
We've no information. To trace it may take some time, but I can assure you, Mrs. Ralston, that the police take every eventuality into account.
But you don't know where he is now. If the son is mentally unstable, the father may have been unstable too.
Well, it's a possibility.
If he came home, after suffering terribly with the Japs perhaps, if he came home and found his wife dead and that his children had gone through some terrible ordeal, and one of them had died, so he might go off his head a bit, and want revenge.
That's only surmise.
But it's possible.
Oh yes, Mrs. Ralston, it's quite possible.
Then the murderer may be middle-aged or even old. When I said the police had rung up, Major Metcalf was frightfully upset. He really was. I saw his face.
Major Metcalf?
He seems quite nice and perfectly normal, but it mightn't show, might it?
No, often it doesn't show at all.
So, there's not only Christopher who's a suspect, there's Major Metcalf as well.
Any other suggestions?
Well, Mr. Paravicini did drop the poker when I said the police had rung up.
Mr. Paravicini?
I know he seems quite old and foreign and everything, but he might not be as old as he looks. He acts like a much younger man, and he's definitely got makeup on his face. His case well noticed it too. Oh, I know it seems very melodramatic, but he might be disguised.
You're very anxious, aren't you, that it shouldn't be young Mr. Red?
He seems so unhappy somehow, so helpless.
Mrs. Ralston, let me tell you something. I have had all possibilities in mind ever since the beginning. The boy Georgie, the father, and someone else. There was a sister, you remember.
Oh, the sister?
It could have been a woman who killed Maureen Lyon. A woman. The man's felt hat pulled well down and the muffler pulled well up. And the killer whispered, you know. It's the voice that gives the sex away. Yes, it could have been a woman.
In this case, well.
She looks a bit old for the part. Oh yes, Mrs. Ralston, there is a very wide field. There's yourself, for instance.
Me?
You're about the right age.
But I...
No, whatever you tell me about yourself, I've no means of checking it now, remember. Then there's your husband.
Giles, and don't be ridiculous.
He and Christopher Wren are much of an age. Say your husband looks older than his years and Christopher Wren looks younger. Actual age is very hard to tell. How much do you know about your husband, Mrs. Ralston?
How much do I know about Giles? Don't be silly.
You've been married how long?
Just a year.
And you met him where?
At a dance in London. We went to the party.
Did you meet his people?
He hasn't any people. They're all dead.
They're all dead.
Yes. But don't make it sound all wrong. His father was a barrister and his mother died when he was a baby.
You're only telling me what he told you.
Yes.
You don't know it of your own knowledge.
But it's
You would be surprised, Mrs. Ralston, how many cases rather like yours we get. Especially since the war. Homes broken up and families dead. Fellow says he's just finished the Air Force and just gotten out of Army training. There are no backgrounds nowadays, and young people just settle their own affairs. They meet and they marry. Parents and relatives used to make inquiries before considering an engagement. That's all done away with. Girl just marries her man. Sometimes she doesn't find out for a year or so that he's an absconding bankrupt, or an army deserter, or something equally undesirable. How long did you know Giles Ralston when you married him?
just 3 weeks.
And you don't know anything about him?
That's not true. I know everything about him. I know just the sort of person he is. He's Giles. And it's absolutely absurd to suggest that he's some crazy homicidal maniac. Why, he wasn't even in London yesterday when the murder took place.
Where was he? Here?
No, he went across country to sail to get some more netting for our chickens.
Bring it back with him?
No, it turned out to be the wrong time.
Only about 30 miles from London, aren't you? Oh, you've got an ABC. An hour by train, a little longer by car.
I tell you, Giles wasn't in London yesterday.
Just a minute, Mrs. Ralston. This your husband's coat?
Yes.
Evening News. Yesterday's. Sold on the street about 3:30 yesterday afternoon.
I don't believe it.
Don't you? Don't you?
Where is he? Where has he gone?
Who?
The sergeant.
He went through there.
If only I could get away somehow. Some way. Is there anywhere I can hide in the house?
Hide?
Yes, from here.
Why?
Darling, they're all so frightfully against me. They're going to say I committed these murders, particularly your husband.
Never mind him. Listen, Christopher, you can't go on running away from things all your life.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's true, isn't it?
Yes, it's quite true.
You've got to grow up sometime, Chris.
I wish I hadn't.
Your name isn't really Christopher Wren, is it?
No.
And you are not really training to be an architect.
No.
Then why did you
Call myself Christopher Wren. It just amused me. And they used to laugh at me at school. Only little Christopher Robin. Robin Brand, Association of Ideas. It was hell being in school.
What's your real name?
We needn't go into that. Ran away whilst I was doing my army service. It was all so beastly. I hated it. Yes, I'm just like the unknown murderer. I told her I was the one the specification fitted. You see, my mother... My mother.
Yes, your mother?
Everything would have been all right if she hadn't died. She would have taken care of me. And looked after me.
You can't go on being looked after all your life. Things happen to you, you've got to bear them. You've got to go on just as usual.
One can't do that.
Yes, one can.
You mean you have?
Yes.
What was it? Something very bad?
Something I've never forgotten.
Was it to do with Giles?
No, it was long before I met Giles.
You must have been very young. Almost a child.
Perhaps that's why it was so awful. It was horrible. Horrible. I tried never to think about it. I tried to put it out of my mind.
So, you're running away too. Running away from things instead of facing them?
Yes, perhaps in a way I am. You know, considering I never met him until yesterday, we seem to know each other rather well.
Yes, it's odd, isn't it?
I don't know. I suppose there's some sort of sympathy between us.
Anyway, you think I ought to stick it out?
Well, frankly, what else can you do?
I might think the sergeant skis. I can ski quite well.
That would be frightfully stupid. It would be almost like admitting you're guilty.
Sergeant Schwarzer thinks I'm guilty.
No, he doesn't. At least, I don't know what he thinks. I hate him. I hate him, I hate him!
Who?
Sergeant Trotter, he puts things into your head. Things that aren't true, things that can't possibly be true.
What is all this?
I don't believe it. I won't believe it.
What? What won't you believe? Come on, out with it.
You see that?
Yes.
What is it? A yesterday's evening paper. A London paper. It was in Giles' pocket, but Giles wasn't in London yesterday.
Well, if he was here all day.
But he wasn't. He went across country in the car to get some netting for the chickens, but he couldn't find any.
Probably he did go up to London after all.
But why shouldn't he tell me he did? Why pretend he's been running all around the countryside?
Perhaps with the news of this murder.
But he didn't know about the murder. Or did he? Did he?
Lord, Molly, surely you don't think... The sergeant doesn't think...
I don't know what the sergeant thinks. And he can make you speak things about people. You ask yourself questions and you begin to doubt. You feel that someone you love and you know well might be a stranger. That's what happens in a nightmare. You're somewhere in the middle of friends and then you turn and look and suddenly they're not your friends any longer. They're different people. Just pretending. Perhaps you can't trust anybody. Perhaps everybody's a stranger.
I seem to be interrupting something.
And no, we were just talking. I must go. The food and the potatoes just torn to pieces.
I'm going to give you a hand.
No, you won't.
Giles,
Tete-a-tetes aren't very healthy things at present. You keep out of the kitchen and keep away from my wife.
But really, look here.
Keep away from my wife, friend. She's not going to be the next victim.
So that's what you think about me.
I've already said so, haven't I? There's a killer loose in this house, and it seems to me you fit the bill.
I'm not the only one to fit the bill.
I don't see who else does.
Oh, how blind you are. Or do you just pretend to be blind?
I tell you I'm worrying about my wife's safety.
So am I. And I'm not going to leave you here alone with her.
What the hell are you trying to imply by
please
that?
go, Christopher.
I'm not going.
Please go, Chris, I mean it.
Shut the far away.
What is all this? Molly, you must be crazy. Perfectly prepared to shut yourself up in the kitchen with a homicidal maniac.
He isn't.
You've only got to look at him to see he's balmy.
He isn't. He's just unhappy. I've known he was dangerous, and anyway, I can take care of myself.
That's what Mrs. Boyle said.
Oh, Giles, don't.
Look here, what is there between you and that wretched boy?
What do you mean by between us? I'm sorry for him, that's all.
Perhaps you've met him before. Perhaps you suggested to him to come here and that you both pretend to meet for the first time. All cooked up between you, was it?
Giles, have you gone out of your mind? How dare you suggest these things?
Rather odd, isn't it, that he should come to stay at an out-of-the-way place like this?
No odder than that Miss Casewell and Major Metcalf and Mrs. Boyle should.
I read once in a paper that these homicidal cases were able to attract women. Looks as though it were true. Where did you first know him? How long has this been going on?
Giles, you're being absolutely ridiculous. I never set eyes on Christopher Wren until he arrived here yesterday.
That's what you say. Perhaps you've been running up to London to meet him on the sly.
You know perfectly well I haven't been up to London for weeks.
You haven't been up to London for weeks. Is that so?
Quite true. What on earth do you mean?
It is. Then what's this? This is one of the gloves you were wearing yesterday afternoon. You dropped it. I picked it up this afternoon when I was talking to Sergeant Trotter. You see what's inside it? A London bus ticket.
Oh, that.
So it seems that you didn't only go to the village yesterday, you went to London as
Oh,
well.
right, I went
Whilst
to
I
London.
was safely away racing around the countryside.
Whilst you were racing around the country.
Come on now, admit it, you went to London.
Oh, right, I went to London. So did you.
What?
So did you. You brought back an evening paper.
Where did you get hold of that?
It was in your overcoat pocket.
Anyone could have put it there.
Did they? No, you were in London.
All right, yes, I was in London. I didn't go to meet a woman there.
Didn't you? Are you sure you didn't?
Eh? What do you mean?
No way, don't come near me.
What's the matter?
Don't touch me.
Did you go to London yesterday to meet Christopher Wren?
Of course not. Don't be a fool.
Then why did you go?
Perhaps I shan't tell you that. Perhaps I've forgotten why I went.
What's come over you, Molly? You're different all of a sudden. I feel as though I don't know you anymore.
Perhaps you never did know me. How long have we been married? A year? But you really don't know anything about me. What I've done or thought or felt or suffered before you knew me.
Molly, you're crazy.
All right, then maybe I'm crazy. Why not? Perhaps it's fun to be crazy.
What the hell are you talking about?
Now. I do hope you young people are not saying a little more than you both mean. One is so apt to in these lovers' quarrels.
Lovers' quarrels, that's true.
Oh, quite so, quite so. I know just how you feel. I've been through all this myself when I was a younger man. Jeunesse, jeunesse, as the poet says. Not been married long, I imagine.
It's no business of yours, Mr. Paraticcini.
No business at all. But I just came in to say that the sergeant cannot find his skis, and I'm afraid he's very annoyed.
Christopher.
What's that?
He wonders if by any chance you might have moved them, Mr. Ralston.
No, of course not.
Mr. Ralston, Mrs. Ralston, have you removed my skis from the cupboard back there where we put them?
Certainly not.
Somebody has taken them.
What made you happen to look for them?
The snow is still lying. I need help here, reinforcements. I was going to ski over to the police station in Market-Hampton and report on the situation here.
And now you can't. Dear, dear. Somebody see to it that you certainly shan't do that. But there could be another reason, couldn't there?
Yes?
What? Somebody might want to get away.
What did you mean when you said Christopher just now?
Nothing.
So our young architect has hooked it, has he? Very, very interesting.
Is this true, Mrs. Ralston?
Oh, thank goodness you haven't gone after all.
Did you take my skis, Mr. Wren?
Your skis, Sergeant? No, why should
Mrs.
I?
Ralston seemed to think that you had.
Mr. Wren is very fond of skiing. I thought he might have taken them just to get a little exercise.
Exercise?
Now listen, you people. This is a serious matter. Somebody has removed my only chance of communication with the outside world. I want everyone here at once.
I think Miss Casewell has gone upstairs.
I'll get her.
I left Major Metcalf in the dining room. Oh, Major Metcalf! He is not there now.
I'll try and find him.
Hello, wanting me?
It's a question of my skis.
Skis?
Oh, Mr. Ralston!
Did either of you two remove a pair of skis from the cupboard near the kitchen door?
Good Lord, no. Why should I?
And I didn't touch them.
Nevertheless, they are gone. Which way did you go back to your room?
By the back stairs.
Then you passed the cupboard door.
If you say so, I have no idea where your skis are.
You were actually in that cupboard today.
Yes, I was.
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed.
At the time Mrs. Boyle was killed, I'd gone down to the cellar.
Were the skis there when you passed through?
I haven't the least idea.
Well, didn't you see them there?
Can't remember.
You must remember if those skis were there then.
No good shouting at me, young fellow. I wasn't interested in any damn skis. I was interested in the cellars. Architecture of this place is quite interesting. I opened the door and I went on down. So I can't tell you whether your skis were there or not.
You realize that you yourself had an excellent opportunity of taking them.
Yes, I grant you that. I wanted to, that is.
The question is, where are they now?
Ought to be able to find them if we all said too. Not a case of hunting them. Wacky great things, skis. Supposing we all said too.
Not quite so fast, Major Metcalf. Maybe you know what we are meant to do.
Okay.
I'm in the position now where I've got to put myself in the place of a crazy, cunning brain. I've got to ask myself what he wants us to do and what he himself is planning on doing next. I've got to try and keep just one step ahead. Because if I don't, there is going to be another death.
You still don't believe that?
Yes, Miss Casewell, I do. 3 blind mice. 2 mice cancelled out. A 3rd mouse still to be dealt with. There are 6 of you here listening to me. 1 of you is a killer. One of you is a killer. I don't know which yet, but I shall. And another of you is the killer's prospective victim. That's the person I'm speaking to. Mrs. Boyle held out on me. Mrs. Boyle is dead. You, whoever you are holding out on me now. Well, don't. Because you're in danger. Anyone who has killed twice won't hesitate to kill a 3rd time. And as it is, I don't know which of you it is who needs protection. So come on now. Anyone here who has anything, however slight, to reproach themselves for in that bygone business had better come out with it. All right? You won't. I'll get the killer, I've no doubt of that. But it may be too late for one of you. I'll tell you another thing. The killer is enjoying this. Yes, he's enjoying himself a good deal. All right, you can go.
Talking of chicken, dear lady, have you ever tried chicken liver served on toast that has been thickly smeared with foie gras, with a thin rasher of bacon just touched with a soupçon of fresh mustard? I will accompany you to the kitchen and we will see what we can concoct together. A charming occupation.
I'm helping my wife, Paravicini.
Your husband isn't afraid for you. Quite natural under the circumstances. He doesn't fancy you being alone with me. It is my sadistic tendencies he fears, not my dishonorable ones. Alas, what an inconvenience the husband always is. Arrivedella.
I'm sure Giles doesn't think
He is
that
very wise. Take no chances. Is there any way I can prove to you, or to him, or to our dogged sergeant, that I am not a homicidal maniac? So difficult to prove a negative. Suppose that in the state I really... But such a gay little tune, don't you think? She cut off their tails with a carving knife. Snick, snick, snick. Delicious. Just what a child will adore. Cruel little things, children. Some of them never grow up.
Stop frightening my wife at once.
I know it's silly of me, but you see, I found her. Her face was all purple. I can't forget it.
I know. It's difficult to forget. You really aren't forgetting kind.
I must go. Food, the dinner, and the potatoes all gone to pieces. Please, Giles.
What did you say to the lady to upset her, sir?
Me, Sergeant? Just a little joke. I've always been fond of fun.
There's nice fun, and there's fun that's not so nice.
Now, I do wonder what you mean by that, Sergeant.
I've been doing a little wondering about you, sir.
Indeed.
I've been wondering about that car of yours, and how it happened to overturn in a snowdrift so conveniently.
Inconveniently, don't you mean?
That rather depends on the way you're looking at it. Just where were you bound for, by the way, when you had this accident?
I was on my way to see a friend.
In this neighborhood?
Not so very far from here.
And what was the name and address of this friend?
Now really, Sergeant Rogers, does that matter now? It has nothing to do with the predicament where it has it.
We always like the fullest information. What did you say this friend's name was?
I didn't say.
No, you didn't say. And it seems you're not going to say. Now that's very interesting.
But there could be so many reasons, Sergeant. And a more discretion. These jealous husbands.
You're rather old to be running around with the ladies at your time of life, aren't you?
I am not perhaps quite so old as I look, Sergeant.
That's just what I've been thinking, sir.
What?
That you may not be as old as you try to. There are a lot of people going about trying to look younger than they are. Now, if someone goes about trying to look older, well, it does make one ask oneself why.
Having asked questions of so many people who ask questions of yourself as well, isn't that overdoing things?
I might get an answer for myself. I don't get many from you.
Well, try again. That is, if you have any more questions to ask.
One or two. Where were you coming from last night?
That is simple, from London.
And what address in London?
I always stay at the Ritz Hotel.
Very nice, too, I'm sure. What is your permanent address?
I dislike permanency.
What is your business or occupation?
I play the markets.
Stockbroker.
Oh, no, you misunderstand me.
Enjoying this little game, aren't you? Oh, and sure of yourself, too, but I shouldn't be too sure. You're mixed up in a murder case, and don't you forget it, murder isn't just fun and games.
Not even this murder? Dear me, you are very serious, Sergeant. I always thought the police had no sense of humor. Is the inquisition over, for the moment?
For the moment, yes.
Thank you very much. I will now return to the drawing room to look for her skis. Just in case anyone has hidden them in the grand piano.
Just a minute, please.
Were you speaking to me?
Yes. Won't you come and sit down?
Well, what do you want?
You may have heard some of the questions I was asking Mr. Peroncini.
I heard them.
I would like to have a little information from you.
What do you want to know?
Full name, please.
Leslie Margaret Catherine Casewell.
Catherine.
I spell it with a K.
Quite so. Address?
Villa Mariposa, Pindior, Majorca.
That's in Italy?
It's an island, a Spanish island.
I see. And what is your address in England?
Care of Morgan's Bank, Leadenhall Street.
No other English address?
No,
How long have you been in England?
a week.
And you have been staying since your arrival?
At the Ledbury Hotel at Knightsbridge.
What brought you to Monkswell Manor, Miss Casey?
I wanted somewhere quiet in the country.
How long did you, or do you propose to remain here?
Until I had finished what I came here to do.
And what was that? And what was that? What was it you came here to do?
I beg your pardon, I was thinking of something else.
You haven't answered my question.
I really don't see, why I should. It's a matter that concerns me alone, a strictly private affair.
All the same, Miss Casey.
No, I don't think we'll argue about it.
Would you mind telling me your age?
Not in the least. It's on my passport. I am 24.
24.
You were thinking I look older. That is quite true.
Is there anyone in this country who can vouch for you?
My bank can reassure you as to my financial position. I can also refer you to a solicitor, a very discreet man. I am not in a position to offer you a social reference. I have lived most of my life abroad.
Mallorca?
In Mallorca and other places.
Were you born abroad?
No. I left England when I was 13.
No, Miss Casewell, I can't quite make you out.
Does it matter?
I don't know. What are you doing here?
It seems to worry you.
It does worry me. You went abroad when you were 13.
12, 13, thereabouts.
Was your name Casewell then?
It's It's my name now.
What was your name then? Come on, tell me.
What are you trying to prove?
I want to know what your name was when you left England.
It's a long time ago. I forgot.
There are things one doesn't forget.
Possibly.
Unhappiness, despair.
I dare say.
What's your real name?
I told you, Leslie Margaret Catherine Casey.
Catherine! What the hell are you doing here?
Oh, God. I wish to God I'd never come here.
I always thought that the police weren't allowed to give people the third degree.
I have merely been interrogating Miss Casewell.
You seem to have upset her. What should he do?
No, it's nothing. It's just all this murder. It's so horrible. It came over me suddenly. I'll go up to my room.
It's impossible. I can't believe it. What can't you believe? 6 impossible things before breakfast, like the Red Queen.
Yes, it's rather like that.
Dear me. You look as though you'd seen a ghost.
I've seen something I ought to have seen before. Blind as a bat I've been, but now I believe you may be able to get somewhere.
The police have a clue.
Yes, Mr. Red. At last, the police have a clue.
I want everyone assembled in here again. Do you know where they are?
Giles and Molly are in the kitchen. I've been helping Major Metcalf to look for your skis. We've looked in the most entertaining of places, but all to no avail. I don't know what Paravicini is.
I'll get them. You get the others. Mr. Paravicini! Mr. Paravicini! Paravicini!
Yes, Sergeant, what can I do for you? Little Bo policeman has lost his skis and doesn't know where to find them. Leave them alone and they'll come home dragging a murderer behind them.
What is all this? Sit down, Mrs. Ralston.
Must I come now? It's very inconvenient.
There are things more important than meals, Mrs. Ralston. Mrs. Boyle, for instance, won't want another meal. That's a very tactless way of putting things, Sergeant. I'm sorry, but I want cooperation, and I intend to get it. Mr. Ralston, would you mind going up and asking Miss Casewell to come down again? She went up in her room. Tell her it will only be for a few minutes.
Have your police been found, Sergeant?
No, Mrs. Ralston. But I may say I have a very strong suspicion of who took them and of why they were taken. I won't say any more at the present moment.
Oh, please don't. I always think explanations should be held to the very end. That exciting last chapter, you know.
This isn't a game, sir.
Isn't it? Now there I think go wrong. And I think it is a game. To somebody.
Do you think murderers enjoying themselves? Maybe. Maybe.
What is happening?
Sit down, Miss Casewell. Mrs. Ralston. Will you all pay attention, please? You may remember that after the murder of Mrs. Boyle, I took statements from you all. Those statements related to your positions at the time the murder was committed. These statements were as follows. Mrs. Ralston in the kitchen, Mr. Paravicini playing piano in the drawing room, Mr. Ralston in his bedroom, Mr. Wren ditto, Miss Casewell in the library, Major Metcalf in the cellar.
Correct.
Those are the statements you made. I had no means of checking these statements. They may be true, they may not. To put it quite clearly, 5 of these statements are true, but 1 is false. Which one? 5 of you were telling the truth, 1 of you was lying. I have a plan that may help me to discover the liar, and if I discover that 1 of you lied to me, then I know who the murderer is.
Not necessarily. Someone may have lied for some other reason.
I rather doubt that.
Well, what's the idea? You've just said you had no means of checking these statements.
No. But supposing everyone was to go through these actions a second time.
That old chestnut reconstruction of the crime.
That's a foreign idea.
Not reconstruction of the crime, Mr. Paravicini. A reconstruction of the movements of apparently innocent persons. What do you expect to learn from that? You will forgive me if I don't make that clear just at the moment.
You want a repeat performance?
Yes, Mr. Ralston, I do.
It's a trap.
What do you mean it's a trap?
It's a trap. I know it is.
I only want people to do exactly as they did before.
But I don't see. I simply can't see what you can possibly hope to find out just by making people do the same things they did before. I think it's just nonsense.
Do you, Mr. Red?
Well, you can count me out. I'm too busy in the kitchen.
I can't count anybody out. One might almost believe that you're all guilty by the looks of you. Why are you all so unwilling?
Of course. What you say goes, Sergeant. We'll all cooperate. Hey, Molly?
Very well.
Fred? Miss Casewell?
Yes.
Paravicini?
Oh yes, I once sent.
Metcalf?
Yes.
Are we all to do exactly what we did before?
The same actions will be performed, yes.
Ah, then I will return to the piano in the drawing room. Once again, with one finger, I will pick out the signature tune of the murderer.
No, not quite so fast, Mr. Paravicini. Mrs. Ralston, did you play the piano?
Yes, I do.
And you know the tune of Three Blind Mice?
Don't we all know it?
Then you could pick it up on the piano with one finger, just as Mr. Paravicini did. Good. Please go into the drawing room, sit at the piano, and be ready to play when I give the signal.
But Sergeant, I understood we were each to repeat our former roles.
The same actions will be performed, but not necessarily by the same people. Thank you, Mrs. Ralston.
I don't see the point.
There is a point. It is a means of checking up on the original statements, and maybe one statement in particular. Now, will you all pay attention, please? I will assign each of you your new stations. Mr. Wren, will you kindly go into the kitchen? Just keep an eye on Mrs. Ralston's dinner for her. You're very fond of cooking, I believe. Mr. Paravicini, will you go up to Mr. Wren's room? By the back stairs in the most convenient way. Major Metcalf, will you go up to Mr. Ralston's room and try to switch the telephone? Miss Casewell, would you mind going down to the cellars? Mr. Wren will show you the way. Unfortunately, I need someone to reproduce my own actions. I'm sorry to ask that of you, Mr. Ralston, but will you go out that window there and trace the telephone wire around near the front door? Rather a chilly job, but you're probably the toughest person here.
And what are you going to do?
I am enacting the part of Mrs. Boyle.
Taking a bit of a risk, aren't you?
Each of you will remain in your new places and stay there until you hear me call you.
Parlor games.
No objection to my wearing a coat?
I should advise it, sir. Take my torch, sir. It's behind the curtain. Mrs. Ralston, count 20 and then begin to play. Mrs. Ralston.
Yes? What is it? You're looking rather pleased with yourself. Have you got what you wanted?
I've got exactly what I wanted.
You know who the murderer is.
Yes, I know.
Which of them?
You ought to know, Mrs. Ralston.
I?
Yes. You've been extraordinarily foolish, you know. You've run a very good chance of being killed by pulling out on me. As a result, you've been in serious danger more than once.
I don't know what you mean.
Come now, Mrs. Ralston. We policemen aren't quite so dumb as you think. I've realized all along that you at first had knowledge of the Longridge Farm affair. You knew Mrs. Boyle was the magistrate concerned. In fact, you knew all about it. Why didn't you speak up and say so?
I don't understand. I want you to forget. Forget.
Your maiden name was Waring.
Yes.
Miss Waring, you taught school at the school where those children went.
Yes.
It's true, isn't it, that Jimmy, the child who died, managed to get a letter posted to you? That letter begs for help. Help from his kind young teacher. You never answered that letter.
But I couldn't. I never got
You
it.
just didn't bother.
That's not true. I was ill. I went down with pneumonia that very day. The letter was beside the others. It was weeks later until I found it in a pile with a lot of other letters. And by then, that poor child was dead. Dead. Waiting for me to do something. Hoping. Gradually losing hope. How it's haunted me ever since. It's monstrous that such things should
Yes! It's monstrous!
I thought police didn't carry revolvers.
The police don't. I'm not a policeman, Mrs. Rawson. You thought I was a policeman because I rang up from a call box and said I was speaking for police headquarters and that Superintendent Trotter was on his way. Cut the telephone wires before I came to the front door. You know who I am, Mrs. Ralston. I'm Georgie. I'm Jimmy's brother, Georgie. You had better not scream, Mrs. Ralston, because if you do, I shall have to fire this revolver. I would like to talk. I said I would like to talk to you a little. Jimmy died. That nasty, cruel woman killed him. They put her in prison. Prison wasn't bad enough for her. I said I'd kill her one day. I did too in the fog. It was great fun. I hope Jimmy knows. I'll kill them all when I've grown up. That's what I said to myself, because grown-ups can do anything that they like. I'm going to kill you in a minute.
You better not. You never get safely away, you know.
Someone's hidden my skis. I can't find them. But it doesn't matter. I don't care if I get away or not. I'm tired. It's all been such fun. Watching you all pretending to be a policeman.
That revolver will make a lot of noise.
It will, rather. Much better to do it the usual way and take you by the neck. The last little mouse in the trap.
Georgie! You know me, don't you? Don't you remember the farm, Georgie? The animals, that fat old pig and the day the bull chased us across the fields. And the dogs.
Dogs.
Yes, Spotting Flame.
Kathy.
Yes, Kathy. You remember me now, don't you?
Kathy, it is you. What are you doing here?
I came to England to find you. I didn't recognize you until you twirled your hair the way you always used to do. Yes, you always did. Georgie, come with me. You're coming with me.
Where are we going?
It's all right, Georgie. I'm taking you somewhere where they will look after you and see that you won't do any more harm.
Molly! Molly, are you all right? Darling, darling.
Giles,
Whoever would have dreamt you was father?
he's mad, quite mad.
Yes, but you knew all
I
about it.
was mixed on it and all. I taught in the school where the children went. He thought I could have saved that child, but
You should have told me.
I wanted to forget.
Everything's under control now. He'll be unconscious soon with the sedative. His sister's looking after him. Well, fellows is Master Hatter, of course. I've had my suspicions of him all along.
You did? Didn't you believe he was a policeman?
I knew he wasn't a policeman. You see, Mrs. Ralston, I'm a policeman.
You?
As soon as we found that notebook with Monkswell Manor in it, we saw it was vital to have someone on the spot. When it was put to him, Major Metcalf agreed to let me take his place. Couldn't understand it when Trotter turned up.
And Casewell is his sister?
Yes, it seems she recognized him just before his last business. Didn't know what to do, but fortunately came to me about it just in time. Well, it's beginning to fall. Help should be arriving soon. Oh, by the way, Mrs. Ralston, I'll remove those skis. I hid them on top of the four-poster.
And I thought it was Parravicini.
I gather they'll examine that car of his rather carefully. I shouldn't be surprised if they found the fatherless or Swiss watches in his spare wheel. Yes, that's his line of business, and asked a little bit of goods. Molly, I believe you thought I was...
Giles, what were you doing in London yesterday?
Darling, I was buying you an anniversary present. We've been married just a year today.
Oh, that's why I was in London and I didn't want you to know.
No.
Their cigars, I do hope they're all right.
Oh, darling, how sweet of you. That's plenty.
You smoke them?
I'll smoke them.
Where's my present?
Oh, yes. I've got all about it. It's a hat.
A hat? But I practically never wear one.
Just for best.
Oh, darling, how lovely.
Put it on.
Later when my hair's done properly.
It is all right, isn't it? The girl in the shop said it was the last thing you asked.
Mrs. Ralston, there's a tell smell of burning coming from the kitchen.
Oh, my God!